I came to think that the world did not want me. I was hardly born. My mother was an American from a Catholic family. My father was a Syrian from a Muslim family, owner of oil wells, companies, and properties. The families did not approve of their relationship. Upon returning from a trip to Syria, my mother found herself pregnant. The families insisted that the child be given up for adoption because they did not accept marriage under any circumstances. My father decided to go to Syria to work and be able to take over the family he had raised. My mom went to the single mom's shelter. My father didn't even get the news. After a difficult delivery overtaken by anxiety and depression, my mother had to reluctantly hand me over. It seems that I really had no future. But I won the whole fight against my own life. I have become an icon of computerization in the world. I revolutionized science. I changed the course of history. I'm Steve Jobs. I was adopted by the Jobs couple, who gave me a name. At a very young age, I engaged in the hobby of renovating and selling used cars in my father's workshop. There, I learned my first lessons in design and electronics, in which I went deeper. In high school, I met Steve Wozniak in an electronics course. It didn't take long before our playful spirit led us to create a device that made it possible to make free long-distance calls. We created the frequency of a sound that served with a forwarding key. I didn't know it yet, but the communications revolution in the world was coming. In the summer of 1972, at the age of 17, against my parents' wishes, I left the house, went to live with my girlfriend in a hut. I started drinking, smoking, and taking the heavy drug LSD. At the end of the same year, I entered Reed College University. I read a lot about spirituality and enlightenment and became a fan of compulsive diets. I walked barefoot around the university, didn't bathe, and lived on returning bottles of soda to earn some change. I gave up on university to dedicate myself to things I really wanted to do. I raised my head and followed. In 1974, I got a job at Atari. There was Steve Wozniak. June 29, 1975 is a historic day. It was that day when, for the first time, when typing on a keyboard, the letters appeared on a computer screen. Wozniak had created the first personal computer. Fascinated by the functionality of the device, I convinced my friend to market the equipment. It was there that Apple Computer was born. In partnership with Mike Markula, we started to market a line of personal computers. It was then that I realized the commercial potential of the graphical user interface guided by the mouse. This led to the creation of Macintosh. Time passed, and in 1985, I was fired from Apple. Yes, after conflicts of ideas and power struggles within the company I created. Time passed, and Jobs returned to the company as an informal advisor to the then CEO, Gil Amelio. But in a few months, the company's board sacked Amelio after Apple suffered one of the biggest quarterly losses in the history of Silicon Valley. But now, I was its executive director, a position that I held from 1997 to 2011 when I resigned. I had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer several years earlier. The fight was tough. I had already had difficult surgeries. It felt like I was losing the fight. It was still very early, but I remember it seemed to me at times that the world really didn't want me. Big mistake, Steve Jobs. You were a victim of time and the unforeseen, as we all are. But the world still regrets its lack. It has done so much that many people don't know how much. The man who was an inventor, businessman, and computer tycoon. Co-founder, president, and CEO of Apple, one of the computer giants. It revolutionized the industries of personal computers, animation films, music, phones, tablets, and digital publications. No future to be born, no future to live. Fallen into the world of drugs and sloppiness. And suddenly, the jump. The awakening of the giant. Yes, the giant existed. It was asleep, just as it exists within you. That's right. You can't imagine the potential you have until you make yourself alive, until you wake up, until you recognize it, until you are convinced of what you are capable of, until you want to. That's what Steve Jobs did. He wanted, he recognized, he woke up. Your time is limited, so don't waste time living someone else's life. Do not be pressured by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinion drown out your inner voice. Most importantly, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They somehow already know what you really want to become. Everything else is secondary. We are here to make a difference in the universe. If not, why be here? Focus on what you are good at. Delegate everything else. Zulper Foundation. You dream, we make it happen.